Welcome to the first official tour of my home studio, office, filmmaking bungalow, whatever you want to call it. It's a 1,400 square foot building in my backyard that I built with the help of some great people, and it's where I work now most days, other than when I want to shoot. So you first come in, here's the entranceway here, have a garage door so we can bring in big stuff, take out big stuff. First area here is kind of gear storage, rig building, the workshop type of area. And all these cabinets are from IKEA. I have a cool video I can make about how I made this rolling island because it can fit lots and lots of gear, Pelican cases and stuff in there. And then in this bay, I went for drawers. So can really, let me see if you can see in there. A lot of these are like pieces of gear. So the idea is that over here you can kind of build up camera rigs, bring them over to there and pack cases so that then you can throw everything on the cart and get it outside, get it loaded up and ready to go. We have a 3D printer over there, have a couple little pieces of gear that are nice to be able to just 3D print. Here is the cart, super helpful to be able to just roll it in and out. Recently I got this monitor stand attachment to it, and that's been huge on set. And honestly, even just moving the monitor around, it's been super helpful. Over here, have some rings and some dumbbells. So in the middle of the day, just get the blood moving, that type of thing. And then in here is the bathroom. You are probably wondering, why is there a bathtub in the bathroom? Well, as I was building it, like I said, I did a lot of this myself, and I knew to do the plumbing in here, it's really not going to add much time, money, or or labor to add in the additional plumbing now for like a tub or a shower, but to add it later on, depending on what this space will be down the road, which is something that my wife and I talked about a lot, would be really expensive because you're jackhammering up concrete, you're really changing the space a lot then. So a lot of this stuff also is from IKEA, all of the cabinets and stuff. Again, when I was putting all of this in, it made it much easier to just work with somebody from there. They have this cool program where if you're a business, you can pay a certain amount of money, give all the dimensions and details of your space, and they'll help you design exactly what you need. And so I worked with somebody and then altered some things here and there to work out better for what I wanted to do for the space. But it was super helpful even to just get someone to do that first draft of, here's everything that you need, here's how much it's going to cost, and kind of go from there then. So here, this was another big part of that. This is the kitchenette. And I had a couple of specific things that I needed to figure out when I was building this space. And one of them was definitely the gear storage, because when I was in my previous workspace, which was in little attic space above the garage that I finished off, that was really great for focused work, pre-production, post-production, meetings, editing, that type of thing. It was great, but there was no room for gear, really. So I had my most important gear up there with me, but then most of the stuff, stands and anything large like that wasn't temperature sensitive, ended up in the garage or the basement. And then so every time I had to pack for a shoot, I ended up just going all over the house, all over the place, trying to get things together. And it was just really inefficient. It was taking too much time. And so that was kind of one of the big reasons. Another big reason was I needed a bathroom in the workspace itself, so that, again, I'm not going in and out of the house constantly throughout the day. But another piece of that, going in and out of the house throughout the day, is I needed a kitchen. Having running water is also just really practical for shoots. If you know the kind of work I do, I love to do a lot of practical effects and a lot of just crazy rig building, that type of thing. And a lot of times that involves having water or being able to wash things, or, it's important that I had water in here. So this has been great. Having the coffee machine obviously is huge. Having my tea kettle there has been awesome. It's flu season, so lots of tea being consumed. This is really cool. This is one of my favorite parts. When I initially went to IKEA and was looking around trying to get ideas, I really liked this, and it's a fridge and freezer. So it's a fridge here, some storage on the top, and then a freezer with 2 drawers. And it's the best thing about it for this space is it's smaller than a normal fridge. I didn't need a massive fridge and freezer. Really, I just needed something that I can fit like lunches, enough beverages so that like if crew is coming or every now and then I'll have a meeting here, I have things to offer people, and then you can put leftovers and stuff like that in there. And so really that's all the size that I needed. And I didn't want, you could see this wall is only about 8 feet. And so in that 8 feet, I wanted to be able to fit a fridge, a lot of storage, and then a sink and some counter space. So being able to fit all that in here was a big deal for me. And you can see up top there, it's like you're also hanging on to a lot of like crafty and stuff after shoots. So in this case, it's like you have all of that stuff that you're bringing back, and you don't want to waste it. You want to be able to hang on to a lot of it for the next shoot. So it ends up there. And that takes me to the space up there, which I'll get some other shots of, but that is the loft. So when I was putting this all together, I knew that some of the spaces weren't going to need the full 12 feet height. And one of those spaces was the bathroom. So my thought was, okay, the bathroom, I'm gonna just build a box that only has 8-foot ceilings. And then that gives me the rest of the space up top to be able to use as storage, which was something that I knew I was gonna need a lot of additional storage that was kind of like more archive, where I don't need to get to it all the time, but maybe once or twice a year I'll need to get to it. And beyond that, it just needs to be kind of shuttered away in a temperature controlled environment like this. So that's the kitchenette. That's been just really amazing day to day to, have as a creature comfort. And then kind of attached to that, we have what I would consider to be like the lounge / meeting space. So I have this TV, and the TV is actually on wheels. And the idea is that can be moved around to different areas of the studio then for different uses. And actually in a couple weeks, we're gonna be using this for a virtual production shoot where we use Unreal Engine on there and the Vive trackers to actually be able to show the parallax and differences in focus and stuff like that on the screen with real stuff in front of it. I think that's gonna be a really cool use case for that. We have our couch, coffee table, and this meeting table here, which has been really great. We have the Apple TV hooked up to that, so you can screen share from here. You can show edits, go through pre-production stuff. That's been really huge and really helpful to have. And then the other cool thing here that I really made sure I did in the planning of all of this, which again, this can totally be another video, is everything is really thought out as far as receptacles and what they do, where they all go to. So these are HDMIs, and they actually go into this closet over here. And so the Apple TV is in there. And so is a PlayStation and a bunch of other stuff. And rather than having all those things just kind of out throughout the space, it was really important to me that I used the opportunity while I had all the walls open to run any kind of low voltage wiring that I might want to. And that low voltage would be anything from speaker wires to Cat6 cable for Ethernet and connecting to a NAS system like my QNAP, and any of that type of thing. And one of the other things I ran is a couple of HDMIs throughout, knowing that here and there I was going to have either TVs or computers or different things like that using that low voltage wiring. Another thing you can probably see all over is these big windows. I love having natural light in the space, and I think in a creative space like this, it's really important to be inspired by your surroundings, and that's part of the reason that I live out here, is to be inspired by nature and the surroundings. But the cool thing is all of these windows and doors I got off of Facebook Marketplace. So if you're building a space, if you're building a house, a garage, a shed, workspace, anything like that, One thing that you can do is before you finalize your plans, you should build around what you can get. So look on Facebook Marketplace and shop around and find the really good deals where people just need to get rid of stuff. And in this case, these really big windows, that one, and there's two other ones I'll show you, they needed to get rid of them and they couldn't because they were so big. So for me, and I mean, I couldn't even get them in my truck. So I went and rented a U-Haul, which again, it's like a U-Haul is like $200. And I was able to get what ended up being like $16,000 worth of windows for $2,000 because he just needed them gone and they were brand new. They still had all the labeling and packaging on them. But they're great windows, and I was able to use them because I got them before I was at the stage in the planning where we had to know the sizes of the windows that were going in. And in this case, because this is post-frame construction, it's based off of like a pole building, you can really fit almost anything, window and door wise, into these because they're just so, they're like Legos with how much they accept different kinds of building materials as you're putting them together. So the next big space is in here. This is kind of overflow closet, but really the main thing in here that I'm excited about is the server rack. And so we have our little code door here so that we can lock everything up because all my data and everything's in here. Right here we have a charging wall that I built. I have another video that I can put together on this if you guys are interested in it, but the big thing here is all of these chargers are on command strips, so you can just pull the plug on them and then throw them in your Pelican case, which is really nice when you go on shoots, and then when you get back you can just re-plug them into these USB cables and go, which is cool. So that was a really fun project to put together. Again, just overflow storage of stands and stuff, cleaning supplies for the studio, and then bigger Pelicans, like drone, cable cam, that type of stuff that, you know, I don't need all the time. This closet's definitely usually messy. And I do think if I were to do it again, I would make this space like 3 times the size that it is. I might even actually incorporate that long bay of cabinets out in the gear storage area into this space, only because there's been a lot of instances where, you know, you're having a certain type of shoot or you're having people over or whatever's happening and you just really want to take everything that you can and just store it away somewhere that's kind of like shut, and especially to be able to lock it. And obviously I can't fit that many things in here. So I think if I were to do it again, that's one thing I would make this space much bigger. This is another one that's only 8-foot ceilings because I knew, given the size of it being like a hallway, I wasn't going to be able to utilize 12 feet of vertical space, at least not very well in here. So you'll see then I have a loft, another loft that's accessible from my office in there. But my favorite part about this space is this server rack. It's not as quiet as the closed-in ones, but the whole room is closed in, so that's not really a big issue for me. I have my printer up here, my Wi-Fi access point. This is just, this is connected to a lot of the different things that are in here that their power is difficult to access. So if you want to power cycle one of these switches or something, rather than trying to reach and unplug anything, you can literally just hit the switch and hit it again. That's like a super cheap thing to add that just, you know, makes your life easier. A lot of Ubiquiti stuff, which has just been incredible, makes things a lot less confusing. My Reolink, and again, that is something where, trying to think ahead, I ran all of these, all of the gray cables in there are Cat5 cables, and they're running out to different sides of the building. I'll put in some B-roll, but I have Reolink's power over Ethernet security cameras around, and that has just been incredible to have. And to be able to use, and actually also have their power over Ethernet doorknob. So this is kind of my first time using PoE stuff, and man, it has just been a real game changer for me with ease of use. Old QNAP, and then that desktop QNAP, and then that rack mount QNAP are just mirrors of each other. So the rack mount is the newer one. It's fast enough to edit off of. It's been really amazing. This whole thing can get its own video of how I put it together and the different parts and pieces and stuff. But that's been just a game changer to have this in here and to have it connected to all of the other things in the studio that it needs to be connected to. Somewhere in there is an Apple TV that's hooked up into there through HDMI, and then there's also an amplifier there, a little amp for speakers that are on the back porch. I'll show you in just a minute too. This piece up here is actually to regulate the temperature in there. I was a little bit worried with that being such a small space. I was a little bit worried that it would get really hot, especially in the summertime. And so I wanted to make sure that I could put that in there. And again, it's like during the build process, it's not bad. You just run one extra set of wires to it. And it's done a really good job of regulating the temperature in that space and making sure that, especially in the summer, it's able to exhaust. And it can change the direction of the fan depending on what it's trying to hit temperature-wise. So continuing over to here, we have where I am most of the time. So this is space for editing, for taking calls, for taking meetings, for pre-production planning, all of that type of stuff. The computer area, it's where I spend most of my time. So this is something that I really obsessed over initially, even down to how the building would be oriented as I was kind of setting my pins out before we got everything started. And it was because I knew I would be spending a lot of time here. And so the views out these windows specifically became really important to me because those I knew were going to be my views every day. And just, the fact that I'm lucky enough to be able to kind of, pick what those views are, it was really important to me that I didn't let that opportunity kind of just go by the wayside and that I really, did what I could with it. And so, also all of these windows have these electric shades on them, and they're all connected to Apple Home. I'll have another video out on the smart home features here that are really huge and actually pretty much all really practical for doing shoots and and anything else in here. But have the computer set up here with the desk. Did a lot of cool little things with hiding pieces of tech in here. Have the teleprompter here for Zoom calls with the A7R5. That's been really huge to be able, to look people in the eye when you're on a Zoom call is one of those things that I think people don't realize is such a big deal until you can actually do it. Have the mic there. And then this is all running off of a MacBook Pro that I have tucked in the back there. And everything is really mobile. So this is on wheels and you can just move this really anywhere you need to. It's connected by one plug and one 10G Ethernet cable, but you can disconnect it and use Wi-Fi if you want, and that all works fine. Here's some different photography of mine around, and then up there you can see the other loft space and some lights hidden up there. So you'll see in just a minute, there are tons of Amaran lights everywhere. And I went back and forth between Amaran and Godox and Forza or whatever, and all the different Nanlite and all the different options, but landed on Amaran. I was a pretty early adopter, big fan of Aputure's lights, and I love the Sidus Link app and being able to use that and set up, especially like the quick shots, basically like setting the scenes that you can quickly go from one to another that adjust all the lights to whatever setting you want. And in here, I have that one just hitting the ceiling, kind of setting like a room tone. And then that other one is currently not on, but that has a spotlight and it's basically acting as just a really nice hair light for Zoom calls. Right now, the setting is just on like daytime bright. So everything is daylight balanced and most of it's on a brighter setting and none of the extra lights are on that wouldn't be used to just brighten up the space. So that kind of leads me over to this, which is one of my favorite parts of the studio. It's one of the latest to kind of get into a form that I think is really workable. And it's a little shooting space. Not massive, but especially for video. I mean, for photo, this would be pretty serviceable for most things. For video, it's you know, you got to think if you're filming widescreen like this, it might be nice cyc wall-wise to have another like 10 feet or something, but really what this is for is camera tests, to have a dedicated space where I wouldn't be just filling it up with junk, that's able to be open for testing gear, testing rigs, and then small shoots. So like we've had a couple product shoots in here that have gone really well. And again, being able to wheel that TV over, use it as a backdrop, green screen stuff in here works great. And yeah, almost more of like a kind of a camera lab type setup. But again, for anything smaller, like a single person talking head, even two people, or anything product, anything tabletop, more than big enough for that type of thing. And really, if you adjust the space, you can take that TV, the cabinet there and the couch and move them over in front of the garage door. And there's actually enough room to build a 8 to 10 foot deep by 10 foot tall by 16 foot wide set, and still be able to get around it, to light it from the back, do all of those type of things and film it from out here, have a little video village over there or in here, hair and makeup, everything that you would actually need to run a shoot of that size, which is really cool because it's not a massive building. I mean, the whole building itself is 36 by 40, which, you know, is, compared to what I'm used to, is incredible. But compared to a lot of studios is really, really small. So, I mean, again, during the whole build process of this, there were a lot of conversations and thinking about like, okay, what is this for? What is it not for? And, you know, what is it going to be for most of the time? Because are there instances where I'm still going to have to go, you know, rent a much, much larger studio in the city? For sure. Could I have built this 3 times the size for not a crazy amount of extra money? Actually, yes. And we have the space here on our land. But again, it really turned into a conversation about like, is that something that I want to be doing all the time? Probably not. And so we went through this kind of right sizing process of, okay, what exactly do I need the space for? And what do I need it for most of the time? And let's build it around those requirements. And then I can rent a larger studio space for the few times a year where I need that larger studio space. So this is really amazing. I could probably do a lot of videos on this because there are a lot of things built into here that I had trouble finding and had to figure out how to do myself. The grid, you would think there would be lots of videos on how to do that, and there's some videos where people do it in the videos, but there's none where it's like, okay, well, how do I get from the ceiling down to the grid? Just something as simple as that. What parts are they? Because it's not a kit, it's 3 separate parts, and none of them are expensive. They're not hard to find. But to figure out what all is actually going to work together, be strong enough, be, you know, structurally safe to have all of that up there, it ended up taking a while, and it shouldn't have. So that's one thing. This this stand that I have the key light on over here that's off of the wall is incredible. I was not expecting it to be this amazing just from a range and weight capacity standpoint. But I mean, it can go, first of all the way over into here, which it really wouldn't need to, but it can extend out, I think 7 or 8 feet. It can go all the way to the floor or all the way up to the ceiling, basically, where I could take the key light off and just attach it to the grid if I needed anything higher. And then, like I said, it can really extend all the way over to this side of the cyc, which has been incredible because I don't have any stands down here to trip anybody up. And again, with not having a ton of space, it's just been really amazing to be able to use a large modifier and not have to worry about any additional stands. This stand is amazing. This is super recent. I just added this like literally the other day, but it uses these pistol grip attachments to adjust the height of everything. And then I have these ball heads on to, change. You can change the camera orientation, any of that type of stuff. And then up here I have a monitor, and again, you can use the ball head to switch to vertical mode and attach it with an HDMI, and then turn it around so you can do like talking head stuff here of yourself. But then also having this tray, I can throw my laptop here, connect that with a USB to this, and I can do tethered shooting for photo, which is really cool. And then I also want to add, I have a clamp that can go on here down there that I can put an iPad on, and eventually I want to be able to put that there to run all the Sidus Link stuff off of there to adjust all of these lights, because I have my key light there, which is a 300C. I have this F22C over here. Up there to light the backdrop is two 300Cs with barn doors. And then back there is, I think it's, is it a 150? No, it's a 300C as like a hair light that actually works better than I thought it would for that. And then so you can adjust any of those through the app, which is nice to obviously not have to get on a ladder every time you want to just change them. And then over here I have a 150C with a spotlight mount for hair lights, backlights, whatever. And then actually just for the room lights up here, I have a 300C just blasting into the ceiling. And then over here I have another 300C with a lantern on it to just try to make the light nice and soft in here, because again, filming a lot of stuff in here that is not super formal, and to just have nice light everywhere you go is a really good bonus to have. This fan, massive fan. It's a 10-foot fan, and I don't know if you're familiar with the brand Big Ass Fans, but this is not one of those, because those are kind of crazy expensive. It was like $2,000 for a fan, and I found this one at Home Depot, and I think it was like $300 or $400, which is like amazing. That's the price of almost like a normal fan. It's been great because it's been able to keep the air moving in this space, which has been able to cut down for me on heating and cooling costs, because with the 12-foot ceilings and it's a big open space, it is not free to heat and cool the space. And the more that I can keep the air moving around and circulating with the fan, it's not quite as taxing on my Mr. Cool system back there, which is how the space is being heated and cooled. It's an 18,000 BTU system, and it wasn't bad to put in. It was definitely a DIY. It was the second one that I've done. I did a much smaller unit in my studio space, my little office space that I built above the garage, and that was super easy. So I knew going into this one that if it was going to be possible, that's what I wanted to go with. It was just super user friendly. I did all the wiring myself to the panel and everything, just like the rest of the wiring in here. And so yeah, again with that, it's like there's outlets on the ceiling. There's outlets everywhere, and a lot of that just goes into planning the space for, what you're going to want it to be, and that is a lot of this. This was kicking around in my mind for over 2 years before I even put pins in the ground and decided to do it. So, I had every version of a drawing that you could imagine of the space, and I think spending much more time in the planning phases and figuring out how you're going to use a space, what you want it for, and then how it's going to be laid out is going to end up saving you a lot of money in the long run, versus just kind of throwing it up and then being like, oh, we need to change this and this and this to make it actually functional for our needs. So I think all that's really left is outside. So it was really important to me that I had some outside space. Again, a big part of this whole project and doing it here was that it's beautiful out here, and to be able to be inspired by the outdoors. Most of my work is in the outdoor recreation space, and so I'd love to be outside, and I want to be outside as much as I can, especially on nice days. And getting a nice space outside where I could take my laptop and work out there, or put some food on the grill for lunch or something. Because that's the one thing I couldn't fit in the kitchenette was any kind of oven. I mean, I could put a hot plate or something in there and plug it in, and that would work fine. But I didn't want to waste that much space on a range, because I figured, well, I have this patio area, I can literally throw a grill out there and cook pretty much anything I would need to. So this is that space out here. This is a 10 by 36 patio, and about 20 feet of it is covered. The part there on the end and the part there on the very end is uncovered, which is kind of nice, because then some times of the year you want the sun, like when it's a little chilly like now, but then it's nice to have a covered area, because the same reason, it's good to have shade, but especially during the build, that was really huge, because being able to have my saws and stuff out here, out of the nice area, but also out of the elements, was really great to be able to just jump out here, saw a piece of trim or whatever I was working on at the time, and take it back inside. There's still wires hanging everywhere, but again, it's like trying to think ahead of what I might need and run things there. So I actually have a Cat 6 drop up there for an additional Wi-Fi access point. And you might think that's kind of ridiculous, because I'm only, 30 feet from the other wireless access point. But what I realized as I was building it, and I was trying to stream music and stuff in here, was this is a metal box. And if you're familiar with like a Faraday bag or a Faraday cage, metal boxes cut off all signal for cell phones, Wi-Fi, everything. And so there's no Wi-Fi out here from in there almost at all. So having an access point out here is actually kind of important. And then I ran some speakers out here because I had the extra speaker wire. So I was like, why not run the wire? And that all runs into that cage. Awesome little ski lift here is a little nod to all my work in the ski industry, and a little fire pit and hangout area. And again, the views out here are just incredible. And actually that area back there, and just on the other side of these trees, I don't see any right now, but there's a 100-acre horse farm over there, and there's constantly, there must not be out right now, or there's somewhere else in the pasture, but there's constantly horses out there, which is just really amazing to be able to look out, because right here's my main office, and see all kinds of wildlife. And actually part of the reason that I have a hawk as a logo is there's constantly hawks in these trees diving down for mice and other stuff, and it's just really cool to see them every single day out here. There's foxes that run through, and obviously deer. So just a really amazing, magical place to work every day. All right, so the one space that I kind of left out is the entryway, and that is because I have no idea what to do here. There's a decent chunk of space. It's a pretty decent chunk of space here. I know I'm underutilizing it. I mean, it's literally just a bench. I know I need a coat rack, and could always use more storage. So if anybody has any big ideas of how I could best utilize this space, I am all ears, because it feels super unfinished, and I want to make it something great. I want to, eventually make it feel like every inch of this place is really thoughtfully utilized to its max potential. And I'm sure it's going to change a lot. I'm sure there's going to be another tour next year, and it'll be totally different. But yeah, if anybody has any thoughts or advice on that space, would love to hear it. And then the other big thing that I was thinking is, I said kind of as I was going around all these different, I can make a video on that, I can make a video on that. I have so much footage from the build process. I've been constantly just trying to roll on everything that I'm doing. I mean, it's like 2 terabytes of just B-roll and me talking like this during the different processes of putting this place together. And, it's going to be a lot of editing. It's going to be a lot of stuff to put it together. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you want to see? What do you want, more in-depth forms of videos on? And what questions do you have? Because when I was starting to research this, obviously there were lots of videos on how to build out a studio space, and there were lots of videos on, how to build a pole building or a garage or a barn or something like that. But there's nothing that I could find on someone who built a creative space of any kind in their backyard, like from scratch. And I think that's going to be more and more common, because part of the reason that I did this was commercial rent is insane. I mean, we used to rent a studio downtown, and it got to the point where it was like, we're not even having clients come in here from, like, most of our clients aren't from this city. So what are we doing paying the rent to be downtown when we're doing calls on Zoom or we're driving to shoots anyways? So this is just so much more economical for me than the alternative. And it's really been a blast being able to kind of piece it together bit by bit and customize things and make it exactly the way that I needed and that was going to make the most sense for this use case. So I'm all ears. If anybody even watches this, if you've made it this far, this is super, super long video. I don't think I've ever made a video this long. But yeah, let me know your questions. Let me know your thoughts, your ideas for the entryway. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for coming along on the ride.